Okay, so I'm going to go with a kind of a deeper red. Um, I think it's an alizarin I've got here. And a little bit of ultramarine in it. Just added a little more water because I wanted darker near the edge. I can see a little bit of my drawing in here, but not much.
Maybe that was my problem. I didn't do a drawing first.
Oh, it does help to have some kind of a guide.
Yeah.
And I want to retain some of that texture from below, so I'm leaving it somewhat light right now.
Sylvia, was your saran wrap over your entire painting or just the
Yeah,
background
it was over the
painting?
entire thing, and I used a bunch of different pieces, not just one piece.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
thank you.
Yeah. Now I'm coming back in where with a little bit of a darker while it's still wet, just in places where I want it to be really dark, you know.
That looks great.
It's fun too to have something already on here, you know. It turns out that I do have sort of a branch looking thing. It's not the same in the same place as what's on the photo, but I see something that looks like a branch and I'm going to take advantage of it. I've got to move something. The menu is covering up my photo. I'm seeing some beautiful green shapes in here too, so I'm going to try to come back in with some green. Drop in some sap green.
You are recording this, right?
Yeah. I have some cat hair on my painting too. I don't think you guys have that, but well, it'll be interesting to see what I get.
I have dog hair.
Okay. That's a a requirement if you have pets, I guess.
I always have dog hair everywhere.
I'm just dropping colors in places where I see that I want to have tints of different colors while it's still kind of wet. Let it kind of blend together. And I'm going to throw a little salt on here too while it's drying because I want to retain some of the texture and the spatter look. So the main thing is I want to keep kind of like emphasizing the shape of the leaf, the main focal point. So I need to come back in. Adding green.
It's amazing, Sylvia, because you have such a big brush, but you're able to control the fine point so well.
It has a good point on it. Always, that's one thing I like about a nice brush like this is that you can do so much when it has a good point. Now, while this is still wet, this green leaf, I need to add some red because the leaf itself kind of blends from a green to a red and orange in here. And I'm going to try to pull out some of those veins. I'm going to get some burnt sienna in here. Up in this area. Let's see. I'm getting confused here with my leaf shape. I have to be careful because the green leaf is still kind of wet. Okay, I've got my shape wrong for my leaf, but I don't know how. Yeah, if you're going to be accurate, then that's important, but I'm not really being that accurate, I guess. It's kind of hard when you're doing an experimental technique, isn't it, to stick with botanical accuracy.
That was a good fix you just did.
Well, it's kind of getting there.
And it might have been a little crumpled, that leaf.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to think that.
Oh, you make me want to go back east.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's been years since I was back there in the fall. I was offered a job at Hasbro once, and they flew me out for an interview to Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and really enjoyed it because it was in the fall. So I took a few extra days and went with a friend who worked there throughout New England, and we just had a wonderful time. I didn't take the job because when it came right down to it, the way it is in the toy industry, you know you'll probably have a job for a couple of years, but then after that, I mean, they'll pay your moving expenses and everything to get there, but then you can pretty much count on not having a job a couple of years later. And then you've got to pay your own expenses to move back. So I didn't. I decided I didn't want to leave Seattle that much. So I just stayed freelancing for them instead. Okay, let's see. Now I'm starting to get a little confused here.
So Sylvia, when I did this, I just sort of dropped the colors on the paper like the woman in the demo you showed us on YouTube
Yeah,
and swirled the colors. So I sort of let that be the guide as to um,
like
where the
where,
leaves end up, where the
yeah,
leaves end up.
I'm probably getting too tied to what is actually on the photo now.
But can you use the plastic wrap without turning it and just make texture that way instead?
Um, Say that again. You
Or
mean
instead,
instead of printing a photo?
no, instead of turning the plastic wrap in a spiral, can you just kind of mush it around to make the texture?
Oh, yeah, because it depends on what it is. If you're painting a rose, then you might want to do the swirling around.
Okay, that's what I did. I put several pieces down and kind of turned them.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that was for the rose because that's the kind of texture that you get with a rose.
Okay.
Let's see here. Okay, I'm going to just start doing a little detail pretty soon because I'll run out of time. Well, it's hard to stop, but you get the idea. Well, you get the idea of what I would do, right? Next thing I would do would be when it's dry enough, I would do some of those veins, like
Don't stop. We can do the other ones next week.
yeah, that's true. We could. Yeah, I'd like to at least get some of the veins in there, just to give you some idea. I need to work more on building up the values in these areas in here and define the shape of this leaf better because it got kind of washed out. And I just did a little bit of a glaze of color in this leaf, so I wanted to wait a little bit for it to dry. So let me just come back in and darken this one outline because this leaf here is the main focus. So let's see, what do I need to add to that? Okay, I'm going to look for my liner or my script brush right here and get a kind of a nice reddish brown color. This might be Indian red, I'm not quite sure exactly which one it is. I can see where I'm going to have to like rub out a little point on this area that got messed up. There are little tiny lines too in here that I see that are, just very minuscule little hair lines. I'm breaking the line. I don't want it to be a solid line everywhere. Now we need a really nice lemon yellow or kind of a yellow green in there. There are so many little veins here, you know, you have to decide, okay, how many am I actually going to put in? You just want to have an impression. You don't want to necessarily show everything. Any questions before we call it a day? I've got, you know, there are a few things I wish I had done that I didn't get done. Like I was going to pull out some, try to get some of those veins by dampening this and just pulling out with my angled brush. Things like that I'd still like to do, but I could still wet it and do that.
Sylvia, the only thing that I can think of is when I'm outlining, like say you have your big light colored leaf and you're
Yeah.
going around with dark, if everything's dry, it's no big deal. But do you still find that, how do you keep it from seeping into the leaf?
Well, I had a problem over here. I don't know if you can see that right in here. I had a problem with that. It
Uh-huh.
seeped into the leaf, and so now what I'm going to have to do, because that happened, I mean, you try just to avoid getting close to a wet edge, but now I've got to take my scrubber brush and I have to try to lift that part.
And lifting is just you're absorbing the paint back into this to the brush.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
actually rubbing it a little bit here so that it'll remove that stain that I had on there.
Oh, okay. I see it's working.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
I
that's a
can
smooth
come back.
brush.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh. So usually you can make corrections like that. Like this brush is angled, you see,
Uh-huh.
and it's stiff. And it also has this end on it so that I can use it to, what I want to do is pull out some lines in here. And let's see if I can do that. Just see if I can wet it slightly and do that.
I always wondered what that little part on the brush was for.
Yeah, well, it's really good for like branches on trees and things like that. I think it's probably not going to work because it's not wet enough or it dried too much. But when things are just before they're, I tried it here, but it was not dry enough, and so it just made it darker. But when it's the right wetness, you can go like this with it, and you can make light lines. It's really neat.
Okay. Like a kind of like a palette knife in a way.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the
What were you
color,
using? Sorry.
the
What,
scrubber brush.
yeah, can you show it again?
Yeah, it's let's see, it's even
Okay.
called a scrubber. It's a
Stiff,
angle, and it has this kind
stiff.
of a end on it too.
So you use the end or
I,
just the
I use
brush?
this to pull out lines, you know, like if
Okay.
I want lines, but then I use this stiffer angled brush to lift things that I don't like. Like, you know, there's some places here too where
More
I
areas.
yeah, I lost the point on this leaf, see, so I'm
Okay.
going to go like that with my tissue. And then I'll have to come back in when it's dry and go back negative space painting. And here too.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
thank
Some
you.
people just take an older brush and cut it short, you know. But
Oh, you
True.
you
could.
don't.
Yeah, good idea. I'm all one
But
of
it
those
needs to
people
be,
though. I hate to cut a brush.
it needs to
Yeah,
be a stiff brush.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
right. Okay. So next
Looks
week,
great. Looks
next
great,
week.
Sylvia.
Oh, thanks. I still,
Beautiful.
I'm not. I liked it a little bit better before I did this. So I think maybe if I do some glazes and do a little more dropping color in, I want to I still want to have that more spontaneous feel about it.
Hmm.
So we'll see. But for next week, I wanted to have us take a look at everything people do, that you've done. But we've been looking at your work every week anyway, so we could plan to do another painting next week too, and then sort of like what we've been doing, because I think it's probably better use of our time if we just paint as much as we can. What do you think?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I'll look at what we've done so far. And does anybody have any burning desire to do a particular thing that we haven't done yet?
Um, I wouldn't mind doing something that's, I don't know why I had this vision of something more traditional, like something you'd see in a botanical illustration book where there'd be like the flower in different phases and
Yeah,
something more like but I mean, that's just, I'm just throwing that out there. I don't have to have that, but
well, it would be a kind of a neat thing to do. We'd have to have something where we would actually have different parts of the plant,
mhm.
to look at. It's always better if you have your own specimen to look at, because you can pull it apart and you can do more detailed things. But let's see. I'll think that over and see if I can come
Yeah.
up with something that would do that. I know everybody doesn't want to do the real tight stuff.
One thing I'm interested in is a zoomed in version of a flower, sort
Mm,
of George O'Keeffe kind of thing.
mm-hmm.
I love doing that kind of thing, and
Yeah,
maybe
I
we
would
could.
too.
Yeah, we haven't done a whole lot of that. We did some, but we could do something that'd be even a little bit more that way. It's sort of abstract in a way, but then it's also very controlled.
Right.
And dramatic.
Yeah. I did make some cards of my work that I've done, even some of the demos, and because my aunt is having her 90th birthday tomorrow, so I'm going to give her some note cards. Let me just grab them and show them to you.
Nice.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the camera here. Maybe I could just show it on here. Yeah, you could probably see it.
Sure.
This was a painting that I did already that
That's beautiful.
it's just geraniums, but it
Gorgeous.
was on this textured paper. It wasn't arches. It was some other paper that had more texture, so it has more texture. And this was actually a demo I did in class before.
Ooh,
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Knows it.
love the tulips.
And
Are
Kit,
the original
They,
paintings yet,
they,
or reproductions?
oh, it was from a photo, and this is just from my printer. I just took a photo and printed it. But Tim, I used Photoshop to move the stem
Oh my goodness.
because, because I had put the stem over here a little bit. It was over a little too far, so I moved it in Photoshop.
Love that
Yeah.
one.
So we could do something like this next week. That'd be kind of fun,
Mm-hmm.
where it's a close up, more of a close up. This was one, it was a demo I did of just a bouquet of flowers, very loose.
Pretty.
Yeah,
And
I
this
like
one,
that.
I think that you guys saw this one, the Cosmos.
Yeah.
And this was one I did actually on location
Ooh, I love
of
it.
an iris. That's kind of what you're talking about, right? With the Georgia
Yeah.
O'Keeffe.
Yep.
This was my hollyhocks.
Pretty.
And then I guess the rest aren't that botanical. They're just, yeah, different ones. This was from the Seaside Gardens that I think maybe when Tim and I went one time. I'm not sure.
Pretty.
Anyway, yeah, we could, I love the idea of doing something. This was my favorite one of painting in class.
Gorgeous.
And it was a wet and wet kind of a thing where it had a soft background, out of focus background, and then focusing more on just a flower in the foreground. But I don't have any real great photos of my own for things like this. If anybody does have some, why don't you send them to me?
I could probably dig some up.
It's better if we work from people's photos instead of from the internet.
Right.
Okay, all right, well, thank you everybody. It's been a fun class for me, and I hope you're all staying healthy and well and still enjoying life.
Sylvia, were you gonna make a voice thread folder for photos?
I'll do it right now. Yeah, I'll do one for photos you could upload because it'd be better if we have a place you can do that. I thought of just doing it when in let's see, on the canvas, but it's better for VoiceThread now because more people know